registration for this event being held on October 22nd to the 24th. Yes, October 22nd to the 24th is now closed. We have over 80 delegates, so compared to last year, good input and good interest in this event forthcoming, and thank you very much for the planning staff and economic development staff looking and scheduling this event coming up next week. So, Chair, those are the information items for economic development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. So we'll go to information item number 1, the Ministry of Natural Resources Forest Biomass Program application. Comments, questions? Just had one question. Was just curious, is there another intake now open, or do we have to wait until that's announced?
Chair, that is a very good question, and through you, so I'll have to go back and look at that. I think it's closed for now, but I don't know when the new intake that could be possible. So I'll bring this back to committee if I may.
Thank you. Item number 2 is the community outreach and engagement, and A is the Center for Research and Innovation in the Bioeconomy Regional Workshop. Comments or questions? Warden.
Thank you. There's a company or group reached out to me at OEMC about biomass, and I'm going to have to link them up with you, Director. So it seems the first two, like item 1 and item 2A, are tied together. So I'm curious. Is it premature for companies to be approaching us, or is it the result of the study that we received last year with the higher marks? Because they sought me out, and so I don't know much about them at this point.
Mr. Davis?
Through you, Chair. So it's a good news story. If there's never premature for us, for individuals and organizations to reach out to us to see what we have here in Renfrew County, especially for biomass. By all means, reach out to myself, our County Forester, Lacey Rose, or Melissa Marquardt, our Manager of Economic Development. I think because of this designation, I think there is more interest in Renfrew County because of what we have and the assets we have here. So by all means, and if I may, Chair, if willing, Lacey, any comments, if you could or wish?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, it's been a hot topic lately. There's been several presentations by county staff, by experts in the field, and that CRIBE networking session, there were some major players in the biomass world also that attended that, so that might have generated some interest. Yeah, interesting that they're reaching out to you directly. That's great news, and like Director Davis said, give us a call if you want to talk about that any further.
Thank you. I had not called them back yet because I didn't know much about it, but I will call them back and then link them with you folks. Thanks.
Thank you. Item number 2B is the New to Frew Community Evening. And item 2C is the Renfrew and Lanark Professional Networking and Attraction Event. Comments, questions? See none. Item 3 is Taste of the Valley. Good news, good turnout, good weather. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, just a big thanks to all of the staff here at Renfrew County for all of their work in putting that on in Petawawa. And as everybody is saying, it was a fantastic event. Great weather, huge turnout. It's too bad we couldn't do it every year, but we will apply for 2026. So thanks to everybody for putting that on.
It's great to see the popularity of the event growing. Item number 4 is the Municipal Agriculture Economic Development and Planning Forum update. Nice to see that the registration is closed and that we've got a full complement of delegates that have registered. And I'll go back to Mr. Davis for the Ottawa Valley Tourism Association report.
Thank you again, Chair. So the OVTA report, again, those following on the paper copy or PDF copy, page 24 of 47. Again, 4 items for information in this report. Item number 1, the Fall Travel Trade Media Familiarization Tours. So Ottawa Valley and members of the Travel Trade Partnership were featured in the September 21st article in the Journal de Montreal and Journal de Quebec, and I apologize for the pronunciation, highlighting things to do and places to stay in Calabogie and the Burnstown area. And in September, a writer from the UK-based GRNY magazine explored the Canadian canoe route in Algonquin Park, including a 2-night stay at the Madawaska Canoe Centre. So good news and good promotion of Renfrew County and beyond. Item number 2, fall online workshop launched. The OVTA is offering a series of fall workshops, as you can see in the report, from October 30th to November 19th on different activities to promote your industry. So please look at that, and you see the link there for registration that is now opened. Item number 3, the Eastern Ontario Rail Trail Project launch event. For those that could have attended or did attend on September 27th. Staff attended the official announcement of the development of the Eastern Ontario Rail Trail Project in Smith Falls. Committee may be aware or should be aware that they are promoting a new route that's utilizing a number of existing rail trails, including the OVRT, the Ottawa Valley Recreational Trail, the Algonquin Trail, the Cataraqui Trail, and the KNP Trail. So we're linking those 3 trails to make a longer loop and a good promotion, a good use of the rail trail network within the 3 communities. And item number 4, the last item, is just the member survey for the Tourism Conference and Annual AGM. Again, you see there the survey is open for comments and concerns to try to get input from the membership about the future format of the annual general meeting for OVTA. So I'll leave it at that, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. We'll go back to information item number 1, the Fall Travel Trade Media Familiarization Tours. Great publicity. Item number 2 is the fall outline workshops that have been launched. Questions, comments? Item number 3 is the Eastern Ontario Rail Trail Project launch event. And I'll start with a member from Greater Madawaska and then the warden.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I had the opportunity, along with Taylor Popke, our Deputy Mayor, to attend this. It was extremely well run. The information was fabulous, and they had people there because the World Trail Conference was taking place in Ottawa the next week. So we had people there that had done the trail. They were from South America, Europe, and we're all raving about it. And the economic driver that this will assist our county and the other counties is fabulous, and the attraction and for people from Europe and South America was what we have to offer. They were absolutely amazed at the lakes, the rivers, the trails. It was extremely well received by all and very, very positive. And one of the things that I got to do while we were there is I'd never even heard of the Railway Museum, and I would strongly suggest that anybody watching this get there. It's actually, it's quite interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Warden.
Yes, thank you. Is it possible to get a little bit of an update on just the impact that trails have economically? I know we had it before where we had an email with how much cycling brings in, how much hiking brings in per person on a visit, and then if we could, because I think it's important to keep stressing, the importance of the trail networks that we have within the county itself as a corporation, but then also within our 18 partners.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the warden and through to you to committee, actually. So the ROI, the return of investments for the rail trails, we did hire a third-party consultant, I think pre-COVID, 2019, 2020, to look at and provide a survey and get feedback to see what the rail trails are bringing back to Renfrew County specifically. I think at the time we're talking about annually $5-point-something million a year at that time. But a good comment by the warden, and we'll follow through to see if we can either update that. And also, if you could, and be reminded that way back in 2015 or 2016, Bruce Howarth did a Renfrew County Trails strategy that needs to be updated at the same time. So I think we can look at the requests and comment by the warden, feedback from different organizations, trail loops like this, really enhances the importance of trails, and then the enhancement of maybe updating our trail strategy moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
And Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the warden's comments. I've actually, at the meeting, I've asked them, part of their study for this loop was the economics behind it, and I've asked them to send that to me, and once I get them, I'll send them out to everybody.
Thank you. Any further comments on item 3? Item 4 is the member survey, the tourism conference and annual general meeting. Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I just encourage everybody that attended last year's to please take this survey so that the Ottawa Valley Tourism Board has a better idea of what people would like to see and the structure of it. At this conference at our AGM last year, we had the AGM plus the conference combined, and some people were mentioning that it took up too much time of their day and so on. So we want to get a better idea and focus on how to run it better. So I'd encourage everybody to please take that.
Thank you for that. So we will move along to the Enterprise Renfrew County report, and back to Mr. Davis.
Thanks again, Chair. So again, page 26 of 47, again, for those following on the paper PDF copies. 3 information items. Information item number 1, midterm consultations and service report for ERC. I hope you had a chance to look at this kind of spreadsheet you have in the committee package. A good news story in the sense of trying to keep those metrics, keeping those numbers in check. Always good to provide information to this committee and county council. We'll include this to county council to show the progress and work that the ERC staff are doing for small businesses throughout Renfrew County. Item number 2, the core success story, and then through the coaching and guidance offered by ERC. Bumpy Roads Studio, Pembroke-based pottery studio, owned and operated by Marie Levesque, received $20,000 from Business Sustainability Stream of My Main Street through the Government of Canada, or FedDev Ontario. So a good news story with the promotion and expansion of this individual organization. So this is the second time we're doing success stories. So you remember last year we had another success story just to highlight what ERC is doing for some of the good organizations within Renfrew County. And the last item for information is workshops and events by ERC. And as you see there, that ERC in partnership with CFDC, a number of empowering neurodivergent lots of words there, with 52 participants in these events. And sorry for the butchering of that the title, but just please look at those number of events going on within Renfrew County in the next month or 2. So Chair, I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. So going back to information item 1 is the midterm consultations and services report. Warden.
Thank you. So it's very positive. I'm just looking at the consultations with existing businesses. It's on the 4th line, 66, and our annual target was 25. So is there a reason why it's almost triple? And I'm assuming it's a good reason, but I'm curious.
Without being in Melissa's world, I can take a stab at this, Warden. So in this situation, it's a good news story because the existing businesses are still in business. And if they require support from the ARC staff, it means they're doing well and looking for more information. So by all means, I'll get the direct answer back from Melissa, but I think that's the answer that you're looking for, Warden.
Thank you. And if I might, a supplementary, number of businesses expand 9 until 4. Again, is that the result of us being able to, our staff to be able to link them up with funding, or is it grant funding, or is it support or low interest loans? I'm kind of curious about that.
Again, through you, Chair, and thank you for the questions. Those are technical questions I don't have the direct answers to. I'll get back to you when Melissa's back. Thank you.
And just one more. When I see number of applications, 47, and number of completed approved participants, 15, is there, people drop out, or did they not meet the qualifications, or do we need to look at some kind of temporary resourcing if we get the same kind of numbers next year? And I don't expect an answer.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you. Yes, the numbers are certainly very, very positive, and even the ones that are slightly below target, we still have 3 months left in the year in order to reach those targets. Go ahead.
Just remember, this is a midterm report, so their year ends March.
Oh, okay.
So this is still really good news because it's only the midterm. They follow the provincial calendar year.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Davis. So item number 2 is the core success story. Another good news story, and hopefully that business continues to grow. Item number 3 are the workshops and events. And seeing no further comments or questions, then we will move to the forestry report. And Ms. Rose, please.
Thank you, Chair. From the forestry report, information item number 1 is just an update on our harvest and renewal activities. So for this year's harvest, we still have 1.5 left to go, which I expect will start up this month. The Petsnick Lake tract and Ruby tract is not yet complete, but there is an update table provided in your report about the status. 1B is just some information. We are planning to plant 42,000 trees next spring, so we put out a request for quotes for tree planting contract providers, which is currently open and closing on November 4th. The harvest tenders for 2025 are currently being advertised, with bids closing on November 20th at 3 p.m. The expected or estimated revenue for the 2025, if bids are received for all tenders, is $180,000. And again, that will depend on the actual bids and the actual volume harvested. Information item number 2 is just a communication update about Shawwoods Outdoor Education Center board meeting on September 19th. Myself and Chair Brose attended that meeting. Everything's still going well there. They had to get a little bit innovative with bringing teachers to the schools instead of the students to the center with the busing disruption, and that has been taken up well by the schools, but hopefully we'll be back on track in November. Information item number 3, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about issues on the Renfrew County Forest. We don't normally talk much about the day-to-day activities that myself and the forest technician get up to in the Renfrew County Forest, but in the last couple of years, there's definitely been an increased number of issues arising on that forested land that's owned by the County of Renfrew. We did recently update the bylaw to prohibit certain activities on Renfrew County-owned forests, and the fines were raised. The activities not permitted were made clearer and expanded, but we do need significant resources to be able to enforce that bylaw. I just wanted to give you an idea of just some of the new and ongoing and unresolved major issues we've encountered this year. There's frequent dumping by the truckload full at Beachburg Tract and Pershik Tract. Those are unresolved and continue. We've had 2 cases of out-of-control bonfires at both the Golden Lake and Pershik tract that the fire departments were called to put out. And along with those bonfires comes a lot of littering, tire fires, party residue and stuff like that. We have encroachments by 2 different adjacent landowners at the Ireland South tract and another encroachment issue at the Centennial Lake tract. And we are currently doing some investigating about uncertainty about legal access at the Centennial Lake tract as well. So we do reach out to the Ontario Provincial Police and Municipal Fire Services when it's appropriate to do so with dumping, fire, trespassing. There's also been a few instances where it didn't really feel safe or appropriate for staff to go into these situations alone. So OPP help was enlisted in those cases. Varying level of success, mostly not success in resolving those issues. The extent of many of these issues is beyond the capacity of our current staffing level, and additional information, mainly surveys, is needed to resolve the encroachments. To date, we've been sending letters to request encroachments be rectified, but this has generally not been effective. Again, just wanted to give you a heads up that the 2025 forestry budget will be requesting funds for surveying, contract bylaw enforcement, and an increase in legal costs to deal with this backlog of issues. We'll also need additional funds to deal with the problems, such as dumping and fencing along boundaries if a survey is completed. There is a exploration of potential issues and a cost estimate and analysis underway for these. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. We'll go back to information item number 1, the harvest and renewal updates. Questions, comments? Councillor from Town of Arnprior.
Thank you, Chair. To Lacey, the tree planting. I know a lot of people are passing, and we get the information on their passing. You can make a donation to plant a tree. Is there any way that the county can get involved to get the $25 that it costs that we send for a tree, that we can get that income?
Ms. Rose?
Through you, Chair. That's a good question. We have not explored that avenue. I do know that there are a few organizations like the Canadian Institute of Forestry and Forest Ontario that do have programs like that some of those trees do end up planted within Renfrew County, not necessarily on Renfrew County forests. The administrative load of running programs like that is quite high. So maybe there's an opportunity to offer them land to plant trees on with their already existing donation programs, or we could definitely look into that in-house. Thank you for that comment.
And the only question I had is the harvest areas remaining. Any black ash issues in those tracts?
That's a good question. Those 2 areas are not within the geographic scope of protected area. So we're okay for this year. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor from Town of Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair. And through you to Lacey, just a question about the tree planting. You mentioned 42,000 trees. Is that about average, below, above, in terms of what we do annually?
Ms. Rose?
Through you, Chair. That is a big one for us. It's not very often that we have a harvest situation that lends itself to planting trees after. So this was a follow-up to a shelterwood white pine harvest we did at the Beachburg tract in 2022 that we've since prepared for harvest. Most of our harvests are well suited to natural regeneration, so poplar just grows back on its own, or we're still thinning plantations which don't require a regeneration effort after. The last time that we've planted this many trees, this actually might be the most since I've worked for the county in 1 year, but our last big tree plant was in 2017, so this is definitely a big one for us.
Any other comments on item number 1, A, B, or C? Item number 2 is the communications updates. And just wanted to add to Lacey's comments. The schools did go out the Shaw Woods education team did go out to the schools to take the program to the schools when the bus service were canceled, and I believe they are fully committed until the end of November. Did I get that right, Lacey? So the on-site programming won't start probably until the new year. And finally, item number 3 is the issues on Renfrew County Forest. Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Lacey, I don't know whether you are able to at this time or take it offline at some point, but the encroachment at Centennial Lake Track and the uncertainty about legal access at Centennial Lake Track, are you able to expand on either of those, of what the issues are, or need to work on it further and get back to me?
We're still gathering intel on that issue, so we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Councillor from town of Petawawa, and then the warden.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Lacey. Just a question on encroachments in general. I noticed that you send letters and you're hoping to do surveys and put up fences. Do we have any other means of stopping these encroachments?
Through you, Chair. So through several instances listed in our bylaw of prohibited activities, there can be fines issued for different kinds of encroachments, whether it be dumping, structures on county forests, et cetera. But those would need to be enforced by a bylaw officer, which we do not really have in-house right now. So that hopefully could be a way that leveling up the bylaw enforcement could also help.
Councillor from, actually, I'll go with the warden first, and then town of Arnprior.
Thank you. With regards to excuse me, with bylaw services, is there first 2 opportunities to combine a contract with other portions of the corporation? I'm thinking of Renfrew County Housing Corporation, and then also some of our other lands. But at the same time, some of our lower tier municipalities have a need for bylaw enforcement as well. So it may end up being a larger service because we already have something for the Algonquin Trail. But I think more and more we're going to have to look at enforcing our own bylaws. And that may also include some of the weed inspector inspections, and then offer or requesting someone to rectify it.
Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Chair. And just to add on to the warden's comment, so not only are we having issues with county forests, as Lacey very well highlighted, we're having issues with the Algonquin Trail, with encroachments and garbage and illegal activities, and even some of our more, I'm going to say, land-based areas like Renfrew County Place. These encroachment issues are ongoing. They seem to be getting worse. And so that's why, with the warden's comments about Protect 5, we've engaged Protect 5. We as a corporation, Protect 5 for any trail bylaw enforcement. So this is, again, looking at a bigger picture and how we can help each other out, whether it's local municipalities or other departments within Renfrew County for bylaw enforcements. And one more thing for clarity, we do have a bylaw officer, and I'm not going to turn around and look at Mr. Raditz, but we do have a bylaw officer, but it's one individual, and I think we need a better look at how we do bylaw enforcement within Renfrew County. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Warden.
And Councillor from town of Arnprior.
Thank you, Chair. My comment was to do with the bylaws, that we had one on the trails, if we could use that person to do the forestry. The other comment would be, Lacey, can we issue out trespassing notices to the people that are encroaching once we do the survey to better enforce what we do?
Through you, Chair. Yes, the bylaw does list the Trespassing Act, and there are several issues in our bylaw that would speak to that as well. We've never, during my tenure here, had an instance like that. So as we go through these, it will definitely be a learning process for all of us.
Yes, supplementary.
Thank you, Chair. As Rob will no doubt say the same as an ex or retired policeman, once you give the first ticket out, it spreads like wildfire. Thank you.
Thank you, and certainly something I suppose we'll have to take a look at during budget to see how best to approach this. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move to Mr. Raditz for the Real Estate Division report.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the committee. The real estate report information item number 1 is just in the attached is just an update on the status of the projects. As you can see, we have some projects that are complete. There's 2 or 3 projects that will be completed within the next week or 2. And then there's another, I think, 3 projects where we'll be issuing a RFQ in another week or 2. So the projects are progressing well. Item number 2 is snow removal tender. So earlier in September, we did issue a tender for several sites for snow removal at the paramedic bases. The 4 of them being Renfrew, Barry's Bay, Eganville, and Petawawa, and we were pleased with the results. For the Renfrew paramedic base, you can see there was only 1 submission, and that contract, 3-year contract, was $56,250. And that was actually a 0% increase for that contract. So that was, we were pleased with that. It's definitely good news. Barry's Bay, the paramedic base there, we had 3 submissions, and that contract was awarded to Crosstown Construction. You can see the value of that contract was $20,400 for a 3-year contract. And for that contract, there was a 23% reduction. Now, saying that, I would just like to mention we did change the scope of work in that particular contract, so that probably contributed to the decrease for that particular contract. Eganville paramedic base, this was the new base, so we didn't have previous contracts, but we were, again, pleased with that result. It was fair market value. You can see it was awarded to RJ Cell, sand and gravel, for the total amount of $22,500 for the 3-year contract. And the last one, Petawawa paramedic base, we had 5 submissions, and that was awarded to JP Splinter for a total cost of $13,950. And that contract, there was a 1% reduction. So overall, again, just to reiterate, we were pleased with the results, and that's definitely good news. So all the successful contractors, we have sent them award letters. Item number 3 is pertaining to delegated authority, and as you can see there, so we had two new leases renewed through the Ministry of Infrastructure. Both leases were in the 3rd extension 5-year contract. And you can see for the one lease, of course, it's in effect from April 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2029, and the second lease being from August 1st, 2022 to July 31st, 2027. So that, again, that's good news that we've secured 2 leasing agreements for the next 5 years. And item number 4 is a resolution pertaining to the paramedic base for architectural services. And Chair,
maybe we'll just go through the information items first, and then we'll do the resolution.
Stop there, sir.
Thank you. So information item number 1 is the real estate capital 2024 capital and capital under threshold projects. Comments or questions? The warden.
Thank you. Just very quickly, it looks really good. I'd only note that the Pembroke ones seem to be a little higher, and all the Renfrew ones and the Empire ones seem to be somewhat lower than our budget. And I'm curious, anything you can add to those comments?
Mr. Raditz.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the warden. Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the results there were, there's kind of a change, like quite a difference in the two different regions, and it just may have been the way the tenders were received and the scope of work. So I don't have anything specific as to why the differences.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further on item number 1? Item number 2 are the snow removal tenders and the contract summaries. And item number 3 is the delegated authority approvals. Just curious, how much vacant space is there still at Renfrew County Place, and how positive is it looking for leasing that?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. So just to confirm, we have no vacant space at RCP. All the areas have been leased. So we do have some external leases, which I think are due in 2026. But to date, everything is occupied, no vacancies.
Well, that's great news, especially coming into budget. Any other questions on item 3? Seeing none, then we'll move to the resolutions, and back to you, Mr. Raditz, for the recommendation.
I'll read the recommendation. Recommendation that the Development and Property Committee directs staff to issue a request for a proposal for architectural services for the design of a paramedic base within the city of Pembroke.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor from Greater Madawaska, seconded by Councillor from McNabb-Braeside. And back to you for background, Mr. Raditz.
Thank you, Chair. So the background, so currently the County of Renfrew is leasing a building at the Pembroke Regional Hospital. It's a three-bay building, and of course that lease expires September 30th, 2025. So staff were in the process of preparing an RFP for architectural design for the possibility of a new paramedic base. And of course that new facility would be for paramedic services. Also, it would incorporate VTAC, the MESA program, and then storage for other EMS vehicles. And Chair, I'll just stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Raditz. Comments or questions? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. And then we'll move to the Planning Division report, and Mr. Howarth, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few information items this month. Item number 1 was a request from the warden for information with regards to the number of small communal systems that are within the County of Renfrew, and we did send out a quick survey to the local municipalities, and based off the information that we received from them, there were 3 systems that were identified. One within the Township of Whitewater region at Champlain Village, and then 2 within the Township of Greater Madawaska, one at Calabogie Peaks and one at Berryvale Condos. Item number 2 is a proposed amendment to the Planning Act regulations. So this is maybe a familiar topic to some of the committee members. So back in 2022, I believe, the province passed Bill 109, which enabled the minister to pass a regulation with respect to surety bonds. So this is a topic with regards to when municipality approves a development and there are securities involved for works, whether it could be like building a new road or stormwater management or any of those types of items where a developer is coming in, building infrastructure or making changes to infrastructure. The municipality requests securities to make sure that in the event of something goes wrong or a default or anything like that, that the municipality has the funds to go in and fix whatever needs fixing. So historically, the municipalities have always typically asked for either just cash or a letter of credit from a bank. With this proposed regulation, what it does is it takes the decision of how to take those securities out of the hands of the municipality and puts it into the hands of the developer, saying the developer now gets to stipulate the form of that credit, which can include surety bonds now. So surety bonds essentially is like an insurance program. So instead of reaching a deal with the developer and making sure that the developer provides those funds, the developer can now go to a third party. Some, like an example would be Trisura. That's a major surety bond corporation that operates throughout Ontario. So they could go to Trisura, for example, pay them a fee saying we need a $5 million bond payable to municipality X, and Trisura would provide that funds to the municipality if they need it. So now instead of the municipality getting to say we want either cash or a letter of credit, now the developer has the option of going and saying we actually don't want to provide cash or a letter of credit, we want to provide a surety bond. And the reason why a developer may want to do this is that it frees up their liquidity or their ability to access credit or finance. When they provide a letter of credit or cash to a municipality, that actually ties up how much available disposable cash they have to move forward to with other programs or other projects that they may have on the docket. With a surety bond, they can essentially walk away. They can say, we've sold our or purchased our obligations at that bond, and that frees up their capital to go and move forward with other projects. So there's definitely a benefit for the developer side. On the municipality side, there is going to be more administration costs involved with that, and there have been known issues when a municipality does need to draw on those surety bonds. So instead of it just having those funds available to the municipality, it's in their bank account, or that's that letter of credit that the bank is here. Those monies are available to the municipality immediately. With using a surety bond, there can be some delays. There have been examples where the bond holder will fight the need for drawing on those securities, so there can be increased legal costs, increased delays. So it's not as ideal for a municipality, but this is one of those ways that the provincial government is looking at how can we make building homes faster, how can we make building homes cheaper for the developers, and this is one of the ways that they've identified that will free up that capital for developers if they do have multiple projects and moving forward. So the minister looks like they're moving forward with this regulation change, and just way of information from municipalities that in the future you may be asked to enter these agreements with these three-party agreements with surety bond holder. Item number 3 is an update with regards to flood hazard identification and mapping program. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the acronym there. So this is in partnership with the Natural Resources Canada, NRCan, and the Ministry of Natural Resources. They have announced that they're opening up another phase of the grant program for matching federal funds for eligible flood mapping projects. Last year, we undertook a phase 1 of this, the project, and we did have a number of studies that we started with essentially identifying where are some of our gaps, where our weaknesses, and what would it take really to move forward to future phases with regards to floodplain mapping for the County of Renfrew. At this point, we don't have the funding necessary, the budget required to move forward. I think in the report it was identified, just on a very high level cost, we're anticipating at a minimum it's going to be over $1 million project, and significantly much higher to move forward with the 12 priority areas that phase 1 identified. So half of that funds would be at least $500,000 at a minimum. We don't have that budget, and we also identified staffing capacity and some other concerns with regards to moving forward with that project. And so at this stage, we don't feel we have the capacity to move forward with an application for this, moving forward with phase 2. I did want to note that those phase 1 materials, they are available to anybody who wants to use them. So phase 1 identified 12 priority areas, like broke up different floodplain sections into, or watershed areas into 12 subsections or priority areas. If a municipality or a group of municipality, because a lot of these don't follow we'll say municipal boundaries because they do follow the watershed. So if a municipality or a group of municipalities did identify one of those priority areas that they wanted to proceed with, those municipalities can move forward with an application on their own. And all those phase 1 materials are available to any municipality who wants to use it or move forward with hiring a consultant to move forward with a phase 2 application to the province and NRCan. Item 4 is just another information item with regards to our enterprise license agreement, or ELA. So again, going back to 2022, the County of Renfrew, we did receive I think it was modernization grant for purchasing Esri software. So this was an agreement that we entered. We received a grant for the first 3 years of this, and this is our GIS software, our ArcGIS, our ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Online, all those GIS and mapping-based solutions that we have and utilize. The advantage of this ELA is that not only do we purchase it for the County of Renfrew, but we received unlimited licenses that we could give to local municipalities. So all local municipalities and staff have access to the software now and can utilize it, and they all follow under our ELA. So that original 3 years that we had purchased it, the software for under that grant, it's set to expire in September, and in 2025 we'll have an outstanding amount of about $28,000 that will have to be included for next year's budget. And then after that, the report goes into some of the costs for years in the future, which on average are looking at about $115,000 a year. So when it comes time to the budget, we'll have to have a discussion with regards to exactly how are we going to move forward with this. So a couple of options that we could look at would be that the County of Renfrew fully covers the cost of this the software package moving forward, and again, just providing those licenses to the local municipalities as we are currently doing now. We could look at implementing a cost-sharing model with some of the local municipalities, or option 3 would be that we could just cancel the enterprise license agreement and revert back to the previous way of doing it, where we would buy individual licenses. And I think that covers that information item. And Chair, would you like me to move forward the last delegation authority information as well right now? Okay, sure, thank you. And just over this past month, we utilized the delegation approvals bylaw 9824 for 2 circumstances. One was we did purchase a new scanner / copier for a plotter. That was a word to cancel. And number 2 was that we issued an RFP to JP2G for developing a site plan in the town of Renfrew for the potential modular village located at the Bonshire Manor site. So that's an exciting project. Hopefully the goal there is to have a project-ready, shovel-ready project in the hopper, so that if and when grant monies are available, that we will have a project saying, here we go, we have approval for this. All we need is the money to move forward, and hopefully we can use that to be successful in some future grant. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Howarth. And we'll go back to information item number 1, the October County Council request for information. Any comments, the warden, and then Councillor from Greater Madawaska?
Thank you. And maybe we have the same question. Calbogie Lodge, I have to confess I was involved in that 30 years ago or 25, so my memory is quite foggy. I thought they too had a communal system for their services, went under the road and in behind where their tennis courts are. But I kind of thought it was a similar system or a setup as the Peaks, but I could be wrong. Thank you.
Mr. Howarth?
Thank you, Chair. So that's possible. I'm just relaying the information I have from the local municipality, but I believe there might be a key difference is that I'm not sure if Greater Madawaska has an agreement with them saying that we'll take over that service. So I think Calbogie Lodge is like a fractional ownership, or so technically it may not qualify for needing an MRA because it doesn't have those freehold component to it. It's still considered one corporation, one entity, which would not necessarily trigger it. But I could be wrong on that. There could be an agreement, and
that's a very good answer.
Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Ditto. Thank you. The warden asked the question that I was going to do, and thank you for the response.
Any further questions on item number 1? Item number 2 is the surety bond proposed amendment to the Planning Act. Councillor from Township of Mount Braeside.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the Director of Planning. So I'm just wondering, it may be too early to tell, but in the cases where there's communal water and wastewater systems constructed and the developer has to put up an equal amount of cash, I believe it is right now, in the event of failure, where the municipality would be forced to take it over, that would be available. Does it look like the surety bond will apply in those circumstances as well in the new regulation?
Mr. Howarth.
Thank you, Chair, through you. So that would be 2 different situations. So the topic about communal services that we've been talking about in the past and those municipal responsibility agreements that would obligate a municipality to take over the system in the event of a default, those are 2 different agreements, 2 separate things. So no, my answer would be no, that would not be applicable because they are passed under 2 different pieces of legislation. So this surety bond is under the Planning Act and will be applicable to agreements for creating like development and infrastructure to support that development. The MRA is done under a different piece of legislation under, I believe it's under the Water Resources Act, or it could be the Environmental Protection Act. It's one of those 2, but it would not be subject to that surety bond. What could happen though, where it may be applicable to, we'll call them decentralized systems as opposed to those communal systems. So there's a bill, you don't have to have an MRA if the municipality is going to assume the ownership of the system outright right from the start. The MRA is only required if the water or wastewater system is going to be held by a private company and provided that service to freehold units. So if the municipality is going to take over that water or wastewater system, just like a road or another piece of infrastructure like stormwater management infrastructure, there would be the original piece of securities required while it's getting developed or built, and then that security would be reduced, usually down to 10% for the first year of operation, and then it would be released in its entirety. That, yes, you could use a surety bond for. So if they wanted to say, yeah, right from the start, we're going to bring in this decentralized water and wastewater system, they would put up their normal securities just like they would for roads, all the pipes in the ground, all that information, all those infrastructure-related costs. Yes, they could use a surety bond for that, and then it would be released just as you would for any other piece of infrastructure. And then at the end of, once it's final approved, the municipality would be the owner of all that infrastructure, water, wastewater, pipes, roads, stormwater, everything would be under the municipality's ownership.
Good. Yes, Councillor from Township of Horton.
Good morning, and thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Question for you is, relative to the municipalities may impose conditions, does the proposed change actually change when the conditions would be required?
Mr. Howard?
Through you, Chair. So no, it's the exact same process. It's just the form of security that you can ask for. So it would be the same timing, same conditions. It would just be, on the administrative side, a different form of security. And then there'll be additional work if the municipality were ever to need to use those securities. And it's not going to be as simple and straightforward as being able to just take money out of a bank account. It will be much more involved if you need to take those securities. But as far as the conditions, there will be no changes or no timing differences.
Supplementary?
If I may, thank you, Chair. Maybe preliminary right now, but from that administrative side, do you have any indication on if that would be a burden down to the township itself, or if that would be something that the county or multiple townships would be able to be participating in?
through you, Chair. It's definitely going to be at the local municipal level because whether it's like a site plan agreement, it could be a subdivision, like a subdivision agreement. Typically, the main cost for securities for those are at the local level, whether it's a road or those infrastructures. So absolutely, you'll see this at the local level.
Any other questions? Councillor from town of Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. So in terms of the surety bonds, our developers have been asking for this for quite some time. And for all the obvious reasons that you've stated here. And there are some concerns in terms of the municipality, but I think we have to trust our local developers. They live in our communities. We've worked with them for a long time. Where I guess the concern raises if there's a company that comes from out of town that you don't know. And my question is, I know this has been used in other places. Have there been stories or nightmares in terms of dealing with these surety bond companies?
Mr. Howarth.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. So yes, those examples, those come from other concerns from other municipalities, which is probably why it's not a popular option. So it is an option that has been available for a very long time. Surety bonds are not something new. They're definitely been utilized in the past, but are not popular with municipalities. But now this regulation sort of takes it out of the hands of the municipalities. You don't have the municipalities no longer can request or put a condition in for that letter of credit or just requiring cash. Now municipalities have to use those surety bond companies at the direction of the developer. But so yes, and that there are examples in Ontario where it has gone poorly, and which is why municipalities have been historically hesitant to utilize that type of service.
Yeah, supplementary, thanks. One of your comments there raises another question. Who chooses the surety bond company? Is it the municipality or the developer?
That is a good question. I don't have an answer for you on that one. So I think it is probably up to discussion, but if I were to venture a guess, I would say it would probably be the developer. There'd be a list of, I'll say, acknowledged bond providers in Ontario, and provided they use one of those recognized bond providers, I think it would probably be up to the developer to choose, because ultimately it would essentially be them paying for that service. They would just provide a price for that service and purchase that service, and then that agreement would be with the municipality that they would guarantee the provision of those funds if needed.
Thank you. Any other comments? I just had one for you, Bruce, and I'm not sure if you can answer it or not, but if there is a dispute and it involves the municipality and the surety company, who usually generates that dispute mechanism? Is the developer involved at all, or do they hand over entirely the responsibility to the surety company and they go through the whole legal process?
Thank you, Chair. So I think it would be case by case dependent on what the situation is and how the municipality got there. There will definitely be times where it would be the obligation of the municipality to say, we need funds, like there was a deficiency in that pipe and we had to go in and replace it. So the onus would be a lot of the times on the municipality to say it was done improperly and provide that proof that they are required to draw on those funds. But I'm sure there will be probably other situations that probably the insurance company is going back to the original developer asking for proof of that it was done correctly. So I'm sure they're not just off scot-free. But as far as the municipality is involved, responsibility they would need to be providing and demonstrating proof that they need to draw on that bond.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? See none, then we'll move to item number 3, which is the Flood Hazard Identification and Mapping Program. Comments or questions? Councillor from town of Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. How many of our present municipalities are in partnership with the county or use this service at the moment?
So So through you, Chair. So this was for phase one, I believe, off the top of my head, I think it covered most of the county. And again, it doesn't follow the municipal boundaries because the watershed is quite different. And we utilized for phase one, try to identify priority areas within the county that could use updated floodplain mapping. And so through phase one, they identified 12 distinct areas saying, here's areas you could focus on. It definitely wasn't every single municipality, but I'll say the majority for sure. Like maybe, it was the majority of municipalities were involved, but it wasn't all of them.
And I just had a comment from the warden who had to step out, but he was curious whether we should be making a recommendation that the county opt out of the program because of the cost and send a letter to the feds and to the province. So, not sure what committee feels in regards to that. Not sure if the warden was making that a recommendation or not. Mr. Davis?
If I may, Chair, and again, the warden sends his regrets because of the call. The idea of just corresponding with the province and the feds, just to reiterate that the cost to get the phase 2 of this flood mapping initiative is quite extraordinary. Renfrew County, as we all know, it's a large geographic area. To get the LIDAR or the additional information to complete the phase 2, to get the flood fill, floodway, and all these different information data points across this large geographic area is going to be a challenge, let alone if it's a local municipality trying to do it on their own. Each municipality, town of Petawawa, Whitewater region, again, they're large municipalities, large geographic areas, will still be very expensive. And even though this fund is good, it still requires 50% costs from the municipality or from the county of Renfrew. And so it'll be a challenge for the county of Renfrew to look at this initiative and to spend money where we don't have it at this time. And Bruce and his team did a very good job explaining the pros and cons of moving forward or not. But right now, it's a challenge for budget deliberations. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor from McNabb-Braeside.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm wondering what the advantages of this really are. I mean, we've had serious problem with flooding in 2013, 17, and 19. So, on the surface, anything that helps us be more prepared for that, sounds good. But on the other hand, I think we have our own flood map, where the vulnerable areas are from basically the areas that were flooded. The Madawaska River doesn't seem to have the same issues as in our section anyway. Perhaps further up there have been issues, but certainly versus the Ottawa River. And I'm just wondering what the practical advantages of any investment here, might be, given that we, speaking for our municipality, we pretty much know what's susceptible to floods.
Mr. Davis?
If I may, Chair, and through you, so there's always a benefit to have more information, detailed information. So the second phase, yes, in 2017 and 2019, we have those maps that show the inundation during those events. However, we don't have a full look at this. So whenever Bruce and his team or your local municipalities and their planning team look at developments that could be close to these areas, it'd be very beneficial to know more exact of what could happen in a flooding event, to have that flood fill, floodway boundaries really well delineated, to make those decisions, to make if there's any development proposals in that area. Overall, I think is a great benefit. Again, the costs, because we don't have a conservation authority in Renfrew County, that is one of the biggest reasons why we're having challenges here in Renfrew County. Typically in Southern Ontario, when they apply for this grant, the Conservation Authority, who have the technology, who have the staffing to do the actual implementation and the gathering, they can do this. We lack that. By default, it should be the Ministry of Natural Resources. They're having challenges too. So that's why we're kind of at this point and at this stage. And I wouldn't mind if I could to pass it off to Bruce to talk more a little bit about the planning aspect for the flood mapping.
Mr. Atworth.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. And yeah, just before I get into that, I did want to also reiterate Director Davis's comments that phase one itself, and that was just more of a data gathering exercise and understanding where we have information. That was a very challenging process, both administratively and on our staffing, just because this is such a complex, multi-jurisdictional issue. You know, we have province of Ontario, we have province of Quebec, we have 2 different hydro companies, we have all the local municipalities on both sides of for the Ottawa River, on both sides of the river. So it was complex, and moving forward, it would be a tough project to move forward on. With regards to the planning, yeah, it is absolutely, the better data helps. Right now, oftentimes, when it comes to even building, because of sometimes, I'll say, the lack of precision on where those floodplain mappings exactly is, it can affect how building permits are done. So a lot of times, a chief building official, in lieu of that certainty, will say, I need an elevation survey. So every time somebody wants to build a house and that's close to a floodplain, they'd have to add that added cost to building to make sure that they're building in a way that is going to be flood proofed, or make sure that they're outside of that floodplain. So more data is always going to be beneficial, but then again, there's that cost to benefit balance that we have to be aware of how much benefit are we going to get versus the cost of doing this study. And that cost of improving our floodplain mapping is significant. I did want to point out as well, it does, like these priority areas extend beyond the Ottawa River. So right now in Renfrew County, the only area that we do have floodplain mapping is along certain sections of the Ottawa River. Not every section is the same. And also we are seeing greater flooding events than historically. So even like, I think we've both 2017, 2019, we saw, floods that would have been considered the 1 in 100 year flood storm, or a storm of flood levels, which, normally it's right in the title. You're only expecting an event like that once in 100 years. We're seeing these more frequently, and as a result of many factors. And so part of this floodplain mapping recommendations that the province and the federal government are hoping to achieve is to make sure that we are ready for if it is a climate event where we have these events are getting more frequent or more extreme, that we have our data is updated, whether it's where we build or whether our infrastructure is going to be sized appropriately to handle that new level of flood, but it extends past the Ottawa River. So it also includes like the Blanchet River, Petawawa River, Madawaska River, and some of the tributaries coming off of those, which is also susceptible to flooding. So I can think of, Muskrat Lake, for example, in 2019 experienced flooding where property owners far inland from, not even close to or even associated with, say, the Ottawa River floodplain, were subject to inundations and flooding. And we saw flooding up on the Madawaska, the top part of Madawaska River, up on Cobbermere and off some of the Bark Lake, and just blanked on the name of the lake, but Kameneske Lake. There's flooding up and down that river as well. So it is significant. There's areas within the county that are susceptible to flooding that aren't involved in the Ottawa River, and it is just the scale of our county. It's huge. We have a lot of water, and it's an expensive project, and so it's that cost to benefit ratio where it's a huge cost. And anyways, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you for that explanation. So just to follow up a little bit here, maybe if you could just remind us with respect to planning decisions. So if there's a floodplain area in any one of these bodies of water that you've talked about, how does that affect planning decisions right now? And if we go through this cost, what would be the difference in the planning decisions? So if something's identified to be in a floodplain right now, does that mean that typically the planning proposal or the development proposal is going to be turned down? I know in Calgary, for example, they had a 100-year flood, and rebuilt where the floodplain was there, and it all got flooded again a few years later. How does the current floodplain definitions in these various body of water affect the planning decisions? And if we go through and get all this information, what would be the difference in planning decisions based on all this research and data and the various phases involved there?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So the policies themselves aren't changing. So the policy still is don't build in the floodplain, essentially. If it's going to be, if you have an area that's going to be subject or, probability of flooding or having the likelihood to flood, essentially the policy is don't build there, build somewhere else or build back from that. So by having this data, it would provide additional accuracy to where those areas are that we should be restricting development to make sure that if we are allowing development close to these areas, that both the people who are going to be occupying those areas in the future are going to be safe. Their property is going to be safe. They're going to be safe. They'll have a safe way of coming in, entering and exiting their properties. So the impact of having that updated mapping will be, number one, better accuracy. But as we've seen with these events, that they are getting more extreme, or that there more areas are going to be identified than probably currently. So the data will get better, but as it affects development, you will probably see more areas with restrictions where development would not be permitted.
Councillor from Town of Arnprior.
Thank you, Chair. To sum up what the warden was, I think, going for, was that the first round we did it as the county with all the municipalities. The second part is on paragraph 2, where it says several local municipalities have inquired whether we're going to go forward in this or not. And I think with the warden's comment, he does not want the county to go forward. That's where the recommendation is. That'll tell the rest of the municipalities that we are not going forward. They're on their own.
Mr. Davis.
Just for point of clarity, and I looked over at CAO, Mr. Kelly, to read into what the warden wants and doesn't want as a challenge. I think the warden just made a comment saying because of the costing, if there's any indication from this committee just to direct staff to say, at this time, due to the budgets, we won't be applying for this grant. That's all he was mentioning, not about the other aspect of your comments.
Councillor from McNabb Braeside.
Thank you, Chair. Is there a deadline, or if this is tabled for now until considered in the next budget, would we miss the window of opportunity? Should there eventually be the appetite, and should there be enough local municipalities that do want to move forward with this?
Thank you. So through you, Chair. So there was a timeline on it, but I think it's the funding is going to be open for several years, and the funds would be available on a first come grant basis. The application was just announced, and that there was a deadline if you had a project that was going to be moving forward. I think it was by February. Then there was a deadline for applications if you wanted funds by February. But if you don't need those funds by February, which is the case of Renfrew County or any other local municipality, there is not a deadline for when to submit that application. But it is, those monies are, once they're gone, once they're used up or grant, they won't be able to apply for that funding after that. So there's a limit to how much money the government's going to give in grants, and once it's gone, it's gone.
Yes, supplementary.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that information. And I would be in favor of not applying for this right now if the window is still open, and hopefully it will be in 6 months if as long as the window's open for any municipality, through their elected representative here to ask us to reconsider, as long as that window is open, I suggest we table this.
You're moving that as a recommendation?
Gee.
Mr. Keller?
Sure, as long as I would be able to word it in a way that would be appropriate, but I'd be willing to move if, sure.
No, thank you, Chair. Good morning. So the only part of all this, and Mr. Davis is quite correct so far, is that well, no, it sounds weird. So far he's right. Give him time. To introduce a motion that's in the negative isn't really appropriate at the moment. So if to say don't do something is not something that we normally entertain, because it sounds silly, but we don't do things quite often. It's not something that don't do this. So to one of the council members' points earlier was just to table it, just not move forward with it is something, if we don't have direction to move forward with it, we don't, right? Just to put simpler. So at the moment, we will just hold it in abeyance, I guess, if you want to call it anything, that we have, we've delivered you the information. We are not going to move forward. But what I would say, if in terms of any direction or moving forward, we could be directed to consider this a piece of advocacy should we be in front of a minister once again. I think we tried it once again at AMO or Roma. I think one of the conferences. We presented this to Minister Graydon Smith at the time, saying thank you very much for the funding, but we needed more, and they said thank you very much, we're not giving you more. But these are the items that we could add to the advocacy list to search for funding in the future to allow us to do this on behalf of either ourselves or local municipalities that are interested in. So all I would suggest, in short, that we hold this in abeyance. We don't need direction other than consensus by committee, just to say thank you very much for the information and move on.
Councillor from McNabb Braeside.
Okay, thank you for that, and thank you for that clarification, CEO. I would ask for one other direction. Could we formulate this into a communique to all the municipalities? Because there may be other elected representatives that, at the local municipalities that would like to advocate us to pursue this at some point in the near future. So if we just make it clear what the current position is, I think that would be appropriate.
Thank you, and through you to the mayor, councillor. So Bruce and his team is in constant communication to those municipalities that have partnered with us back in phase 1, and he'll continue to do so with this, not direction, but this information item to those partnering municipalities.
Councillor from Horton.
Thank you very much, and through you, Chair. I'm left a little unsure in reading this of the value, and I appreciate that I'll be leaning back into the township to understand the use of this, but certainly more information is always wonderful. The balance of the information to the cost is my challenge right now. I think, as my colleague mentioned from McNabb Braeside, is many of us who have residence and live on the Ottawa and the Bone Shire and in my township, we know exactly where the water goes. So I would be leaning, if there's any potential, not just the mapping, but preventative guidance, right? The retention or the potential for preparing our areas for any climate situation, any extreme flooding. Certainly 2017 caught us off guard. 2019 we were somewhat better prepared for. 2022 and 2023, we were much better prepared for. So if we could lean into any funding for preparedness as opposed to just mapping, that would be my guidance or my ask. If that would be an area that we advocate for, but again, I go back to my first thought is I'm not sure the value of a lot of complexity and an ecosystem of a lot of chefs in one kitchen and high cost. So appreciate your time and effort to that, but I would absolutely support not leaning forward into this at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Just to Mr. Davis's last comment about sending out the information to the municipalities that participated in the first phase. I believe there were some municipalities that were not part of that first phase, and I would ask that information to be going to them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4, which is the Esri Small Local Government Enterprise License Agreement. Comments or questions? Councillor from down at Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, just a question about, I see that there's a couple of different options here in terms of moving forward. And I also see that we know how many licenses we have given out, 233 and 134. If we do get to the point where we go with some kind of cost-sharing model, do we know how that is going to look? Is it going to be based on 17 equal shares? Are Pembroke and Pikwakanagan involved with this? Or do we know how many licenses are given out to each municipality, and do we share it in that manner?
Mr. Howarth.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, we do know who each of those licensees are and how, a breakdown of who is using the program and the software. How that cost sharing would work would be up for discussion. That would be there could be multiple ways. Like under that option B of implementing a cost sharing model, there could be a multitude of options there. I will provide my own little personal opinion here. It does get complicated, especially with like a small municipality. So we'll take like Brunel, Lindach, and Raglan, for example, where their staffing resources may be limited, or their ability to use, somebody with the knowledge to use the GIS may be limited. But it is one of those services, though, that if they had the software, that it enhances the county as a whole by them having access to it for that data sharing ability, data creation, data management. It makes our lives a little much easier if everybody's on the same system, using the same procedures. There's a benefit to us. But if BLR were, for example, asked to cost share, they may push back saying, "Oh, we can't afford that. That's a cost that's too exorbitant for us," and then it actually weakens everybody by them not participating. So I'll just add my 2 cents there. It will be a challenge, whether you do it by user or by how much people actually use it. But I think there is a benefit for having everybody within the county utilizing the same system or the same software. But yeah, if we were to explore a cost sharing method, there are several different ways we could do it, by user, by a license, but or just by assessment. There's a whole bunch of ways that we could look at in the future.
Thank you. And the only question I had, does this software allow you to generate a report that would indicate how many municipal requests are utilizing or are coming through the service? Is just to track it might help when it comes to talking about budget, how to manage cost?
Through you, Chair. So I don't know about automatically generating a report, but we know who the users are and which municipalities they are from. So we could definitely pull that information and have that as a guide to saying who is using it. And there's also credits involved with these licenses, so we know who the big users of those credits are. So instead of each municipality or each user, the county gets a whole number of credits, and then everybody gets to use them, and we know who's using those credits. So there's ways that we can do some research and figuring out who are the big users or who are the heavy hitters using their licenses, versus somebody who just may have it sitting on their desktop just because they can, and may not be a big contributor to it. But we can pull something together, I'm sure.
Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Since I've never been on the site myself, does the user, each time they use it, have to sign in? And then does it would it track the amount of time that they're signed in for? I'm just thinking for the cost sharing and so on, but can we track it that way each time they sign in?
So I'm not exactly, I'm not 100% sure of how it's tracked, but yeah, you do have to sign in. You can also do the auto sign in, so it just automatically signs you in if it's on your desktop. But I don't know about if we're able to generate a report for saying exactly who is using it and how many times. But yes, you do have to log in and to use the software and have a license.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Chair. And just I'm taking this opportunity just to reiterate how important GIS and mapping is not only to the County of Renfrew and the staff and the different divisions, but to each municipality. And the heavy, as Bruce mentioned, the heavy hitters with big users, Armprior, I think Petawawa and Renfrew, a lot of their staff are utilizing the GIS software, let alone the web application, which is the public application. It's with this ELA, it's the potential. Whether it's a local municipality like Brudenell, Lindauch, Raglan, that at this time may not be able to utilize it because of staffing, if in the future they have a staff member that wants to utilize this, they can. Again, this software to buy it individual licenses is $3,000 to $4,000 per license. With this ELA, it's basically unlimited. And to utilize the functionalities and the data involved in GIS, again, this is my background. I fully support this in the way we're doing this. We, as the County of Renfrew, the administrator of the ELA, take some pressure off the municipalities when we move forward, just the administrative portions, let alone the data captures and the technology we utilize within the GIS, and especially we have the dedicated GIS staff here. We have two excellent GIS individuals, Angie Schultz and Sam, that utilize this on a day-to-day basis, which most municipalities at this time do not. So I'm going to kind of reiterate, this is a very important project, a very important program, and thanking the county in the sense of using the municipal modernization funds back in 2020, I believe, to do this 3-year program. So I want to take this opportunity and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, then item number 4 is the delegated authority approvals. Questions or comments? Director Davis.
Just for clarity, we're on item number 5, Chair.
My apologies. Yes, you're right. Item number 5. And I see no further questions. So I will need a mover and a seconder to adopt the report as a whole. Moved by Councillor from the town of Petawawa, seconded by Councillor from McNabb-Braeside. Comments, questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Moving to new business, and Councillor from town of Armprior had some new business he wanted to share.
Thank you, Chair. CNL is providing a radioactive communication center at their new science building on October 24th from 7 till 9. And secondly, on the 31st of October, the CNL stewardship will be hosting the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. Any other new business? Seeing none, we have no closed meeting at this time. So the date of the next meeting will be Tuesday, November the 12th, 2024. And I'll need a mover and a seconder to adjourn. Moved by Councillor from Town of by Councillor from Laurentian Valley. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.